What up, y'all? Deb from the place, and I got another 25 or so Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers to show you today. We usually see a ton of like low impact draft stuff. We got to spend half the video talking about that garbage, but today we actually haven't seen too much just like draft chaff. You know, there are a few cards towards the beginning of the video, but literally just a few. And then it's just like rares and bomb uncommons and stuff for the whole rest of the runtime of the video. So let's go ahead and get to it. But like I said, we got some normal stuff to plow our way through real quick before we get to the real hot sauce today. Let's look at Shigeki here, Fang of Shigeki. I just really like that word. It's 1 green mana for a 1/1 enchantment Snake Ninja with Death Touch. Now, normally, I don't love 1 mana dudes in limited unless it's draft and my deck skews really aggressively, or it's sealed and that 1 mana 1/1 does something really good over time. Like, there are exceptions to this rule, and Death Touchers is one of those exceptions. I don't mind 1 mana 1/1 Death Touchers in most limited environments, and this one is even better than it would normally be because it's got the enchantment subtype that matters, the ninja subtype matters, the fact that it's a cheap Death Touch dude might matter in a format where you're trying to modify things. This is a really good early target for modifications, so there's a lot of cool things about this dude. There's also Nezumi Blade Blesser. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/2 Rat Samurai. That has Death Touch as long as you have an artifact, and it's got Menace as long as you have an enchantment. So, neat little dude right here. I like these guys that do different things when you have an artifact or an enchantment. There's a lot of cards in this set that want you to have both, but I really like these dudes that really only need you to have one of them. We also saw some reprints today that are really important for the Mono Blue or Blue X tempo deck that's shaping up right now. Both Spell Pierce and Essence Capture both got reprinted today, which is pretty scary. I mean, these are both really good cards. Spell Piercing, for the uninitiated, is just 1 blue mana to counter target non-creature spell unless the opponent pays 1, which is unfreaking believable. It doesn't look like much, but trust me, the card is very, very good and has done plenty of work in the past. As far as Essence Capture, this is just an Essence Scatter with upside that's a little harder to cast, right? Essence Capture is 2 blue mana for an instant, counter a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on one of your guys. So these have both done plenty of work in the very recent past, as a matter of fact, and they could do work again in a mono blue tempo deck that's looking like it's happening. But one of the coolest lower rarity cards of the day is one that I'm not sure is going to see a whole lot of play, but it's still one that I really like. This is Obika Reckoner Raid, just 1 black mana for a saga. On the first 2 chapters, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. On chapter 3, you exile it and then return it as Nezumi Road Captain. I love that the initials are almost Narc. That's weird, but it's a 2/2 enchantment rat rogue with menace and vehicles you control have menace. That's kind of cool. For just 1 black mana, you get a 2/2 on turn 3 with menace. That's not bad. It can't attack on turn 3. It has to wait till turn 4 to attack, but it can go ahead and crew any vehicles you may have played on turn 2, so that's cool. I'm not sure if this is good enough, right? It does give you some damage on the first couple of turns of the game, and then become a creature with a keyword ability that provides a keyword ability to your other dudes, because I heard you like keyword abilities, Yo Dog, and all that stuff. So the card is interesting, and I love the flavor as sort of a cybernetic ninja rat motorcycle gang. It's such a weird string of words to have to put together, but it's awesome, and I can't wait to buy this jacket. I'm sure that it's going to be, I don't know, on Etsy at the very least, right? You're going to be able to buy this jacket somewhere, and I'll be the first one to do it. Now, we're not done with lower rarity stuff yet, but a lot of the lower rarity stuff that's left from today is actually really good. But then there's Spinning Wheel Kick. I really like this card. Anytime they put like a wrestling move or martial arts move on a card, I'm going to like it. But Spinning Wheel Kick, not Spinning Heel Kick, Dev. Spinning Wheel Kick is 2 green and 2X for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. So if you have a lot of mana, all the mana, in fact, you can do this to a bunch of creatures. But for 3 mana, a bite effect, probably not great, but 5 mana for killing 2 dudes? Now we're kind of talking, but still at sorcery speed, I don't think, even with the sort of modality and versatility of this card, I'm pretty sure it's not going anywhere. Let's move up a little bit in value, at least I think, to Oni Cult Anvil. This is Rakdos colors, a black and a red for an artifact. Whenever 1 or more artifacts you control leave the battlefield during your turn, Create a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. And you can tap it and sack an artifact to have it deal a damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. So to me, this is kind of like cat combo at home. In a way, right? Because it combos with itself, you can just like create a 1/1 and then later sacrifice the 1/1 to ping your opponent. And really drain your opponent, which is neat. And this isn't legendary. You can have multiple copies of this out. You can be making multiple 1/1s in a turn. Again, if you have multiple copies. Someone at Wizards came along and made sure to kill the fun by making the, the ability only trigger once each turn per copy of this card. But if you got multiples out, I imagine it gets pretty sick pretty quickly. There's plenty of eggs to crack in Standard to get this started. Or maybe an artifact creature dies, through combat or something like that. And that gets this started, makes constructs. You sacrifice constructs to ping your opponent. And I don't know, it puts them on a clock that I kind of like. The cool thing is, again, it feels like cat combo at home, but in some ways, it's cat combo on 1 card. A problem is that it only triggers during your turn, and that kind of sucks. So you can't, block with a construct token that it has created, and then tap it to sacrifice the construct token, and you get another construct token. Again, it only triggers during your turn, so again, they really had to take some of the fun out of this card. But I still think, all things considered, this is, in a lot of ways, a really cool card that I can't be very sure we'll see too much play. That said, I will treasure it. I like the card. Let's move on to Mobilizer Mech. I can't believe I'm covering this card so early in the video, but this is 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 3/4 vehicle with flying. Whenever it becomes crewed, up to 1 other target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature till end of turn. And this crews for 3, so this is pretty neat, right? Just in Standard, with an Asika's Chariot. You no longer have to crew Asika's Chariot. Just crew this for 1 less than you would normally have to crew a Chariot. And suddenly, your Chariot's crewed. That's pretty slick, my friend. So I don't know. I like it, but I'm not sure that it's actually good enough. If there's a thing that crews for 1 million, then this is probably at least a little bit better. I mean, I'm sure that there are vehicles out there that crew for way too much than you would normally want to crew a vehicle for. So that's, this could be okay. Maybe it goes with God, what is it called? The 7-11 for 1 mana. It's open all night. Consulate Dreadnought. I knew Dreadnought was in the name. I somehow got Consulate. But yeah, it's a 7-11 crew 6. So if you're able to crew this, get in with your 1-drop Consulate Dreadnought, I don't know, on turn 3, that could work. Now, we're still on the uncommons part of the journey here. We got 3 of them to look at left today, but I'm pretty sure all of these are really good. Now, Prosperous Thief, I'm kind of on the fence about, but I still think this could be cool for a number of decks. This is 2 and a blue for a 3/2 human ninja with ninjutsu for 2 mana, 1 and a blue. Whenever 1 or more ninjas or rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Now, I do hate the or more here, but it'd be super busted if it was just you get a treasure for each ninja or rogue that does a combat damage. But still, it's pretty easy to get both of these creature types through for combat damage. And when you play this, you'll probably get a treasure token, right? If you ninjutsu this into play, you only paid 2 mana to do so, and you get a treasure token back. So it's kind of like you only paid 1 mana for a 3/2. That gets through for combat damage, right? You bolt your opponent off of this. So I really kind of like where that's going. Also like that if it sits on the table, it doesn't even have to attack in subsequent turns. You can get through with unblockable or flying guys maybe, and create treasure turn after turn, and that really only takes a turn or 2 worth of happening to matter, right? If you're able to play this on turn 2 and get a treasure token on turn 2 after bouncing your 1-drop ninjutsu guy or whatever, then suddenly you've gained a ton of value. You've ramped on turn 2 in your ninjutsu deck in Standard. That's really going to matter on the next 2 turns. So I like a lot about this card. Getting it into play early is good. That means you might proc it more the earlier you actually get to play it. So there's a lot of really cool things about this. The earlier you play it too, the better its stat line is. On turn 2, a 3/2 is not terrible. Then you'll untap the next turn with a 3/2 and a treasure token, just ready to go. There's so many things that I like about this card. And, it looks like it's a 3 mana thing, but I'm really just looking at this as a 2 mana card. But even as a 3 mana card, could be worse. In the Rogues deck, where it can ninjutsu into play. It can ninjutsu into play off of any creature type. So keep that in mind. But, maybe your Soaring Thought Thief gets in. and you pop your Thought Thief back to your hand and throw this down, and then you play your Thought Thief off of the treasure and another mana on like turn 3. Like, there's a lot of cool lines with this card. So kind of a huge fan of this, and I do think it will have some relevancy. But next, let's take a look at Anchor Reality, baby. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this card, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. Search your library for an equipment or vehicle, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. If the mana value of the card is less than the mana value of the permanent you sacrificed, scry 2. So I've just seen some people reading the card wrong. Just to clear something up about this translation, it is true, yes. You get to, no matter what you sacrificed, it does not matter if you sacrifice a tiny artifact or a tiny creature or a token or whatever. You get to go get whatever equipment or vehicle from the history of Magic that you have in your library. And just throw it onto the battlefield. That's crazy, right? Like in Historic, you could sacrifice like a token, like a treasure, you know? You could treasure, blood token, whatever, and just go and slap a Parhelion onto the battlefield, which like seems pretty okay. I'm not sure how good it actually is, but it seems pretty okay. And like, you can basically transmute this into a Maul of the Skyclaves in Standard. That seems interesting, right? You can just go and get your Embercleave in Historic and just throw it on something pre-combat, if you don't already have the Embercleave in your hand. Now they truly always have the Embercleave. I don't know. You know, I want to call this like a way too fixed Tinker, but some people will get mad at me even for saying that, so I have to be very particular in my language. This card's design was inspired by Tinker. Can I at least say that? But it is obviously no Tinker. Not at all, but I don't know, I guess for the rest of the existence of Magic the Gathering, we have to look sideways at every equipment and every vehicle they ever produce and design and put into the world, because this card exists, right? If they produce, you know, a 14 mana vehicle that, you know, there's no way you could ever cast it, this can do so. So just keep your eyes peeled for stuff this works with, even though it already works with a number of things I'm kind of excited to try it with. But let's look at, I won't call it my favorite uncommon of the day, and I won't even necessarily call it the most powerful uncommon of the day. It's just the one that annoys me the most. Let's take a look at Selfless Samurai. This is 1 and a white for a Fox Samurai. It's a 2/2. Whenever a Samurai or Warrior you control attacks alone, it gains lifelink till end of turn. Sacrifice Selfless Samurai. Choose another target creature you control. Guess what happens? It gains indestructible till end of turn. Yay! Selfless Savior's back. But, however, this cost double what a Selfless Savior cost. You know, there was a lot of value in being able to play Selfless Savior on turn 1 and then play your Luminarch Aspirant on turn 2. You know, and make sure your Aspirant is protected. As soon as it comes into play, it's protected, right? No extra mana requirement needed. You already took care of that. You can't really do that with this card. The fact that it costs 2 mana makes it completely different in your aggro deck than a card like Selfless Savior. So I want to get that out of the way straight away. I think that is going to be a massive difference, but they did make this a 2 mana 2/2. They did give it some upside. You know, a thing attacking alone gains lifelink is actually pretty decent, especially in a sort of aggro mirror. So I don't know, there's some cool things about the card, and I'm pretty sure it will see some play even though it costs 2. And again, a huge part of Savior was that it only cost 1 mana. Enormous part. Cannot be underestimated how important that was. But even with this costing 2 mana and sort of having to trip over yourself, right? Like, you have to play this into your Thalia, into your, you know, your Luminarch Aspirant to make sure that those cards are protected. Well, then you've waited until turn 3 to play your important cards. Or maybe you play your Luminarch Aspirant on turn 2, hold your breath, and then play this on turn 3. Right? And hope your opponent doesn't have an instant speed removal spell while this is on the stack. So, you know, there's a lot of interesting play patterns this introduces that weren't really there with Selfless Savior, and I'm kind of down for that. But I do still think the card will find its way into, you know, these mono-white decks. But let's get it moving up to the rare slot and see what we got to see today. Let's look at March of Wretched Sorrow first, I think. This is X and a black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may exile any number of black cards from your hand. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. March of Wretched Sorrow deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. So This is interesting. This reminds me of like an Erebos' Intervention, which is a card that I played a one or two of a lot in like best of one. But in best of three, this would often, creep its way into my sideboards. I played a lot of Erebos' Intervention. I kind of like this card for that reason. I can't tell you, too, how many times in my mono black decks over the last, 6 months or something like that, I have felt like I needed a way to gain some more life, like outside of, environmental sciences, off of, an iTwitch learn or a Hunt the Specimens learn or something. Outside of specifically environmental sciences, there just don't seem to be a whole lot of ways to gain life in these mono black decks. And that kind of sucks when you're trying to get to a 6-mana sweeper at the top of your curve. And you can't just take all those shots to aggro. So, I don't know, something like this as like a 1 or 2 of removal spell in your mono black deck doesn't actually seem like a terrible idea. But as much utility as I think that card brings, there were a bunch of really cool cards today. And I value cool cards more highly than just like utility cards that might be a one of in one standard deck. So let's move on to Weaver of Harmony, which might not see play in any standard decks, but I still think it's a really freaking cool card. So it's 1 green for a 2/2 enchantment Snake Druid. Other enchantment creatures you control get +1/+1. You can pay a green and tap it to copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copies. So, yes, I will double my teleportation circle activations or triggers. That seems really good. There's plenty of stuff you can do with this. I can't imagine a commander player having to describe all the things this can do, right? But there's plenty of stuff just in standard this does. There's like the 5-mana green enchantment, just got printed last set. I never remember the name of it, but it's on your screen right now. It's got like 4 different modes you can choose from at the beginning of combat on your turn, I believe it is. And it's like some of it's life, some of it's counters on guys, some of it's mana or whatever. And being able to double up on those triggers would be super silly. So there's just all kinds of stuff that this little dude could do for you in standard, all at a relatively low rate. 2 mana is not a bad initial investment. And then 1 green mana, you can probably find that laying around when it comes time to double an activation or a trigger or whatever. So I actually think this dude is really cool, and he also just randomly has other like anthem value if you're playing your enchantment creatures deck. So there's a lot of cool things about this. I'm going to craft 4 copies of this on day 1, but I'm not sure you should. But up next, let's look at another probably just strictly cool card. This is Lightpaws, Emperor's Voice, and this is just some of the most stunning art that I've ever seen on a Magic card in my life. Playing Magic 25, 27 years? Something like that. Yeah, oh my god, 27 years I'm old. And this is maybe my favorite art of all time. It's so pretty. But anyway, what's the card do, Devin? It is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 2/2 legendary Fox Advisor. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura with a different name than each aura you control. Put that card onto the battlefield attached to Lightpaws, then shuffle. Now, you don't have to put the initial aura onto Lightpaws, but the one that you search for, you do put on Lightpaws, and they have put some restrictions on this thing, right? Why does it feels like a Stoneforge Mystic? Is that what they're doing? Yeah, it feels like a Stoneforge Mystic a little bit. But for auras. And I kind of really dig what they're doing there. Again, it has to be lower cost, right? You're not going to get real mana value out of this in any way. You're not even going to get same mana value, because that would kind of be gross. If you cast a 3-mana aura and then go get a 3-mana aura, because that would be 6 mana value. That's a little much. But in this case, you can cast like a 2-mana aura, go get a 1-mana aura, and that's 3 mana value. You can cast a 3-mana aura, get a 2-mana aura, that's 5 mana value. You're doing pretty good, right? So it's actually not bad when it comes to generating some mana value for you. But you can't cast a 3-mana aura, go get an all that glitters, and then do it again next turn and go get another all that glitters. You can't do that. But I do want to note that this doesn't trigger only once each turn. You can cast an aura, go get an aura, and then cast an aura, and go get an aura, and put 2 auras on Lightpaws that turn, or possibly even 4. This card goes really well in these kind of build a battleship decks, these Voltron decks that are just trying to make one creature as big as possible. And if one of the auras that you play on it or go search up, more likely I would imagine in some cases, gives this card indestructible or gives this card hexproof or some other form of even light protection, like a ward perhaps, then you're really in the money in the early game. So there's a lot that I like about this dude. Not sure how competitive this is. I feel like I say that about a lot of cards nowadays. But again, there's a lot of setup involved here. You might just get blown out the moment you try to throw something on this, right? So I'm just not sure at the end of the day that it has what it takes to be a really playable card at the higher level in Standard. But I do think that given the right tools, given the right, 1, 2, and 3 mana auras to play around with, the card could actually be a serious force. So I do like this card. Outside of just liking it because it's awesome, I like it because I do think it has some potential constructed playability, but it really matters what tools we get to build around it with. Speaking of cool cards, again, we just keep looking at cool cards today, and this one's Mythic, and it's Orzhov, so I have to love it. But how good is it, right? Let's look at Spirit Sister's Call. This is 5 mana, 3 and Orzhov, white and a black, for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, choose target permanent card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice a permanent that shares a type with the chosen card. If you do, return the chosen card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains, if this permanent would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. So one thing that's cool about this is that you can pay 5 mana for like an enchantment reanimator spell, right? Like if you have a 7 or 8 mana, if you have an omnipotence, a 9 mana enchantment in your graveyard, you can play Spirit Sister's Call and then sacrifice Spirit Sister's Call to bring back your omnipotence, which seems cool, especially if we get some really expensive enchantments in this set. I'd like that. Just dump it into your graveyard, bring it back with this. But one way or the other, it's still really cool, right? Like you can sacrifice a tiny creature. This is another card that you can sacrifice a thing. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, and get something out of your yard rather than from your library in this case. You get something out of your yard that's as big as you want it to be. That's kind of nuts, And it's anything. It can be a creature. So this is like a reanimator spell that reanimates something every single turn, which is actually good. Like picture this as like kind of a God Pharaoh's gift in a way. And isn't that kind of sick? When you look at it in through that lens, that's pretty good. But this can also get back a big, stupid, powerful artifact just by you sacrificing a blood token or a treasure token. This can get back a 6 to 10, mana artifact or something. And it goes for enchantments as well, like I've already discussed. So a planeswalker, you sacrifice like a 3 or 4 mana planeswalker or a planeswalker that's really low on a loyalty, and you just like get a new planeswalker. You can even get the same planeswalker from your yard, right? Like I sacrifice a Wrenn and 7 that's on 1, and I get the Wrenn and 7 in my yard, right? Note too, one last thing I want to talk about with this card is that anything you get out of your yard with it will always be exiled after it leaves the battlefield. But the first thing you sacrifice to it, you can then get back on the next turn if you want to, right? You can sacrifice something else and get the initial sacrifice back because it will have gone to your graveyard. So I hope that came out making sense. One way or the other, I do think this card might potentially have some legs. 5 mana is a lot, but it isn't a do-nothing. It does something the turn that it enters the battlefield on your side. You have to wait till the end of the turn. So you're not going to get any kind of like surprised, hasty attacks, but it still does something the turn of ETBs, and it could get back a ton of mana value for you the turn of ETBs as well. So there's a lot that I like about this. Working with any permanent type I think really matters too. So I don't know. I think the card has some real potential to be a banger in Standard. But let's look at Invoke Whirlwind next. This is 1 and 4 blue, as all the invokes tend to be, 4 of their respective color. For a sorcery, gain control of target artifact or creature, untap it. Whoops. It's actually really, really good. It's so sick, as a matter of fact. It might not look good to everybody, but it is unlike an effect like, say, Control Magic, or these other aura-based things, or like a Mind Flayer, for instance. Compare this to Mind Flayer, right? Which is 5 mana to take just creatures. But this can take artifacts as well. And it can't, you can't just kill the Mind Flayer and they get their guy back, when it comes to this card. With Control Magic, they could just, kill the Control Magic with a Disenchant or something and get their guy back. Spells tend to be much better at, doing this and getting you to actually keep the creature than most other card types, right? And I think this is much better than most other take that guy things in the format, right? Like we saw the 4 mana aura based steal a guy thing a couple of sets ago. You have to sacrifice a creature to play it. And we've also seen Tempted by the Auric recently in this format, and these aren't great cards. Like Lowell Mage's Domination, sometimes a played sideboard card in the Rogues deck, and sometimes a played card in these sort of very fringe mono blue control or mono blue mid range decks. And I think that this will take the place of that. I'm not sure. I don't think that it makes these mono blue mid range decks particularly good, but that deck has been getting some pieces lately. Not just the tempo deck, but like the actual real mono blue mid-range deck that plays like Consuming Tide on turn 4 to sweep the board. Maybe it plays this on turn 5 to steal whatever was left on the table, perhaps. And then later on in the game, it plays like Hullbreaker Horror. You could also make the argument this plays really well with a Leer, even though they're on curve together. Imagine stealing your opponent's creature, then playing a Leer, then getting to play this out of your yard again. It would just very sick stuff. Invoke Whirlwind could be capable of in the format. Untapping the creature is also huge. Untapping an artifact is big. On the commander table, I imagine there will be plenty of juicy, targets for artifacts this can nab. So I like a lot about this. I think it might see play in multiple formats. Those formats mostly being standard and commander. Any mono blue deck in commander, I imagine, probably makes a slot for this card. But in standard, at least, I think this is much, much better than a lot of cards that have tried to do similar things to it here in the recent past. So now we have this, and I think that it's actually a really good piece for the mono blue decks, but does it make mono blue relevant? Probably not. But is it a good piece for those decks? Yeah, indisputably, absolutely, yes. But last card of the day, we just reloaded Mythic Spoiler to make sure, and yes, last card here, Takenuma Abandoned Mire. This is a legendary land that taps to add a black mana. It comes into play untapped every single time. Taps for a black, replaces swamps. It's good. I feel like I have to remind people, because every day people are like, these legendary lands aren't as good as you think. And yeah, they are. Yes, they are. This one channels, just like all the other legendary ones. You can pay 3 and a black and discard it to mill 3 and then return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. My only gripe, like if I had to come up with a gripe with these cards, it would be, I kind of wish it said each legendary permanent you control. That'd be cool, especially since there are legends in the mana base nowadays with these cards. There's legendary artifacts, and there's all kinds of stuff legendary. Like a planeswalker is legendary. So I would really like it, but they would be even more busted. That's probably not good. But is this one the weakest we've seen in the cycle so far? I'm not too sure, actually. I see some people claiming that it is. The red one was the weakest one before that, and I still think the red one is probably the weakest one. The red one is 2 guys, just 2 colorless guys with the ability to gain haste for 4 mana. And that's actually not terrible. It's really not a bad card, guys. I keep hearing people say like it's terrible. The red one is still a really good card. It's going to replace at least 1 mountain in every red deck. Possibly in every red X deck, like every 2-color deck with red in it. Especially every 2-color deck with red that isn't snow. There it is. You'll definitely play like one of the red one. Why would you not do that? But anyway, even with the MDFCs in the format, you still have room in your deck. Like just the one of. There's no opportunity cost to it whatsoever. Same thing is true of the black one, but I think the black one is a little bit better in the current format because it slots into an existing deck, right? Like mono black, or even Orzhov control, right? These Blood on the Snow decks, but particularly mono black control. This is going to get back. I love that the word Planeswalker is on this card, unless I hate that the word Planeswalker is on this card. But this isn't just creatures. You can get back the Lolth that's in your yard. You can get back the Sorin that's in your yard, the Kaya that's in your yards. Whatever Planeswalker happens to be hanging out in there, you can nab back. But if you want, you can also trade this in for, any creature that happens to be messing around in your yard. Like, what are you doing in there? You come back to my hand. So just a raise dead type effect that also targets Planeswalkers. Stapled to an untapped land, I think it's definitely, just like all the other ones, just worth the 1 or 2 of. But especially in the mono black deck, that kind of hinges around Planeswalkers and making sure that you always have one on the table. Yeah, the card is definitely really important. It's going to see play. Now, of course, in that deck, that deck is snow. That deck plays Blood on the Snow. All your swamps have to be snow. So I'm not sure that you play more than like one copy of this card, but I do think, especially with Faceless Haven no longer an option in this format, that you probably make room for, like, you can make room more easily for one copy of this card. It doesn't hurt you too badly. But that is all for today's previews, and I have really talked myself into Spirit Sister's Call. I think the card is actually ridiculous. This card's ludicrous, guys. You heard it here first. Sleeper, number one sleeper in the set so far, unless it's not a sleeper and everybody else is realizing already that it's good. I don't know. I don't know what anybody else is saying about the set. But this strikes me as the kind of card that would look like a sweeper to a lot of, or sleeper, rather, to me at least. But I don't know. Are people talking about it? I have no idea. One way or the other, I think this card is stupid. I think this card might be very stupid. But let me know what your favorite cards of today were. Down there in the comments section, in the sideboard. Get down there and not only let me know how you felt about my takes, tear me apart and all that stuff. Or just tell me I'm right. I'm a very smart man. That makes me feel good. It's good. It drives my blood pressure down. Makes me, calm and serene and tranquil and, not more likely for bad things to happen to me. So, give me compliments. I like compliments, but if you want, you can tear me apart down there too. I don't care. Just let me know how you felt about the whole kit and caboodle in the comment section. And do any of this stuff if you feel like it, right? Join the Twitch streams. We have a lot of fun playing Magic on Twitch over there, and we also cover spoilers from time to time on the Twitch streams. Check out the Patreon. Thank you to all the Patreons that remained patrons, through the first of the month. That is payout day, and a lot of you stuck around, and I really, really appreciate that. You have no idea how much of a load off, my mind, sort of all of your new support has been, and everyone that upped their contribution that was already a patron. Jeez, y'all, like you showed out. You showed out for me, and it means so freaking much to me. Sort of what you've been able to do to help out around here. It's really humbling and amazing in all those words. You've done a lot. You've done a lot for me, and I won't forget that. And I'll make up for it too. I'll make sure the content's real around here. But in any case, and honestly, the content's been way more real lately than it was in the past, I think. And I'll try to keep that up. But anyway, I just really want to say I appreciate all the patrons. Follow me on Twitter as well. But aside from that, I'm done for today. So again, just let me know how you felt about it, and I'll catch you cats later. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.